Combat achievements have been out for a little while now, and today I'm going to be doing my first guide on one of the specific achievements. We go here into the Hero tab and we click Combat Mastery, and then on the Grandmaster section, go ahead and open this up. We're going to be doing the Seiryu Grandmaster one, which is a solo kill in less than 1 minute flat. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into this guide. Now for the big picture idea, what I did here is I used magic and melee as a hybrid setup, and essentially did a giant metamorph on Seiryu's head, and then did a large Zerk rotation up on the crystals in order to get a very fast kill time. In fact, if I scroll on down here to Seiryu, I have managed a 51.6, and for those curious, that's what my log looks like. I know people like to see how many scales I have, but I digress. So there's quite a bit of room for error depending on how you do this, and there is potential to go even faster. I had a relatively slow metamorph compared to what some of my other friends were doing, but the thing that really helped out the most was the normal spellbook, and that is because, as I've discussed in earlier videos, Divine Rage with Augury or Piety or Rigor is technically stronger than the tier 99 curse, and the 4% crit chance from Eclipsed Soul is rather nice to have when you're really trying to pump out some damage. And with Seiryu, the only time you really have to do any survival, so to speak, is when you're actually clearing out the head, and you're using magic at that point. You're not zerking, so it's not too bad to let Eclipsed Soul help you barely survive, and it'll let you get your HP down for going up on the crystals, which will help with Zerk Fury and whatnot. But looking at the inventory real quick, I just modified my normal farming preset, and there is a lot of extra stuff you do not need in here. Like for doing the kill specifically, you don't need a Karoming swap or a scythe or anything like that. You don't really need brews. This is literally just my normal farming ED1 preset that I just swapped a few things over. You will need mines, combat dummies, some form of Greco swap, and for the gear, I was using Sliske for magic as it has the extra crit bonus. And these perks on here are not perfectly ideal, but they work just fine. These perks are actually set up right now for doing Vorkath, but I digress. The Death Touch Brace is just a hybrid item that sits in the glove swap to make switching a little bit easier, so you only have to do 4-piece armor, 2 weapons, and a prayer, which for me, 7-way is kind of that sweet spot. If you really wanted to go above and beyond and really squeeze out every extra bit of damage, you could do enhanced wrist wraps. That would work, and then have gloves of passage for melee. Obviously, you don't need lucky charms to get a speed kill here, but if you're superstitious like me, you keep them in anyways. Armor spikes are an odd one because I believe the crystals technically attack you and proc armor spikes. I wasn't paying attention during the kills, but it's just in my normal preset anyways, so I left them in because crystals, I do believe, technically attack you. I think I've seen it proc DTB as well, so that is something to keep in mind. I could be 100% wrong on that, by the way. Other important items: Grim, obviously for crit chance. You want your T95s, you want your best in slot for both styles. Reaver's Ring just for the raw crit chance. I didn't want to do ring swaps either. And the overall theme with this setup is build up as much crit chance as possible as you can with a mage melee setup. And you can't use range or necro really with this setup because Eclipsed Soul does not work with Split Soul. And other than that, Dragon Battle Axe is important. It's part of the pre-build. In the rune pouches, it's just kind of my standard setup. Feel free to pause the video if you need to see what's in here. And honestly, that's about it gear-wise. There's nothing really too fancy. It's a pretty straightforward mage melee hybrid setup. We're just using normal prayers instead of curses. Now for other ancillary gear, things like relics and whatnot that I was using, I just used Zerk Fury, Font of Life, and COE. Now with Eclipsed Soul, you might think it's counterproductive to use Zerk Fury with it. However, its healing is not nearly as strong as Soul Split, and you get to low enough HP when dealing with Seiryu to where you pretty much will keep at least half HP. And I think it's worthwhile to use Zerk Fury because Death Ward isn't really going to help you much at all, and FOTS is not going to help you. At least I don't think it will. So I would just run this kind of standard setup and just kind of roll the dice with whatever damage buff you get from Zerk Fury. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring up the actual kill where I got Grandmaster here. And the only thing I've done for a pre-build is I started off with my melee gear equipped and then used a Meteor Strike on the combat dummies. but essentially all I was doing was toggling this dummy to max hit mode, and then I was standing here and used a meteor strike and just spammed a bunch of claws with my Lang swords equipped, so that way I could build up Lang stacks, as I didn't want to deal with the RNG of building them up in the instance, so that's the only special thing I really did. And then other than that is I just stalled an incendiary shot and used Lord of Bones in order to keep the stall. So we'll just play forward here, go ahead and go in, right click teleport, and then once I was in here I went ahead and released the stall with a natural instinct, piercing, Greco, equip the staff. Honestly, it probably would be better to equip the Lang swords, or maybe do this whole pre-build with the vestments still on, so that way you're doing 120 instead of 100, but that is 2020 hindsight speaking now that I'm looking back on this. And after that Greco, I would just equip my dragon battle axe, hit the spec, and then go into an FSOA spec. Now, I did get lucky here with a relent proc on this kill, where I got my relent proc on the dragon battle axe itself, but all I would do otherwise is just add in like a G conk, and then I would pretty much get 100% adren, because you're under crit buff, you're under natural instinct, you have all of this crit chance built up, especially with the normal prayers. It is by no means a requirement to get a relent proc on your D-backs here, but I hit it. But I went ahead and hit FSOA spec, maybe an ability just to build up a dren, surge dived around here, and then what I would do is I got to right around this line and I would surge in and then target cycle, smoke cloud, and metamorph. And then here I would hit a G-conk, omni power, wand spec into a G-conk and maybe an Iban or a wild magic in this case, and then start my tendies. And I got pretty lucky here. I think this is pretty fast, but essentially what I was doing is, if I just bring it back a smidge, what I did is I hit G-conk into a Nami and then swapped over to my melee, so that way I could start building past 100% with the vestments effect. And then I basically allowed me to do a couple of abilities, because during that little fire animation, you're not able to go up. You have to wait for that to finish, even if you're below the 7.2 mil HP figure, which is when Seiryu gets knocked out and you're able to go attack the crystals. And then I just dove over and then climbed the crystals here. And it's just kind of a waiting game. What you can do here is right click on the crystal that is closest to you. And then when you get up on the crystal, you'll notice the camera shift. You can then left click and then just hit Zerk and then just go off from there. But then the rotation is Zerk, Barge, A-Pot, Bleed the Assault, Greco with a dual wield equip into a Dragon Claw. And I saw the HP was really low here, so I said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to hope that G Fury kills the crystal, which it did. So now I have the G Fury buff to then use on my Overpower here. And as the Overpower released, I then went ahead and used up my Lang spec, which this hits double 30Ks on both abilities. And then I have Hurricane to then finish off the second crystal. And now I'm here with 10 seconds of Zerk. I still have some crit buff D-backs is going, so I just go in for a Chaos Roar and D-Claw spam and hope that I get it. Did a few D-claws and then hit a Sever just to try and kill it, and it happened to kill it, and it was quite the PB. I was shocked to see that I got a 51.6. So that's essentially all I really did for this, was use that rotation, and I just farmed it out until I got it. It took me a while to figure out the pre-build. I was trying other things like range mage or range melee or other combos or different formats and whatnot, but I finally caved in and used the normal prayer book, so that way I got extra crit chance for magic and melee, and I happened to get a pretty sizable personal best, and I got the achievement. And now what I'll go ahead and do is just leave you guys with the uninterrupted kill.
Here we go again.
Please, game. Please let it be it. Holy shit! 51.6! Holy fuck! What? What? I thought it was gonna be a 59. Holy shit, we did it! Ain't no fucking way. Ain't no fucking way.